And welcome to the CyberHut TV Vendor Introduction Series, where I get to interview some of the leading startups around the globe looking to solve some of our exciting identity security problems. My name is Simon Moffat, founder at the CyberHut, and in this episode, Alon from Astrix Security. Welcome, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks for having me here. Or Shimon.
Not at all. Not at all. It's. I appreciate how busy it is running startups and changing the world of cyber. So I always appreciate taking some time out. And for those people who have not seen one of these episodes before, I essentially get to ask our esteemed guest three very important questions to understand a little bit more about their mission and vision. And I always start off with the same question, which is essentially, what is the problem that Astrix Security is looking to solve?
Yeah, so it's in the world where we're heading to, where enterprises will have more virtual employees than human employees. Yeah. We already have different agents and AI tools that help us write emails, write code, take meeting notes. Maybe this recording will be edited by a nice agent.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, they're more productive. They take less time off, right? They make less mistakes. They're less expensive. So really, enterprises will will decrease the amount of employees, right? They're hiring, and this world of machines that is really machines are outnumbering humans is exactly the problem that we're here to solve to tackle, right? When you think of AI, I always call it artificial identities. Right, so that's kind of where the world is going. Obviously, orders of magnitude more complex, more innovative, and maybe also more opportunities than the kind of usual identity problems that we used to have in the human world.
I think it's on one hand it's terrifying, but on the other hand it's really exciting because there are just an infinite number of things we can do, opportunities. But as you say, we do need to manage this. We need to look at both these sort of entry points for physical people accessing these systems, but underneath that, there's agents, there's data, there's all of the mechanics to make it work. And I do think this is going to be a bigger problem as more people use these types of language models and systems. It's just going to proliferate, isn't it? It's just going to increase. And I guess why is this a problem? Is it just the fact that it's new technology? These legacy identity systems are just not built for this world, or is it a bit of a combination of the two, do you think?
Yeah, so the first thing is that obviously you have to rethink everything, right? Like the protocols are different, the pace are different, the rate, the technology stack, the way we use them, the way they integrate and connect to the enterprise. With human stuff, you have single sign-on, you have 2FA. Attaching an owner to a human is natural. The identity of a human is kind of natural, right? When John Smith left the organization, it's kind of clear, right, how to do that. Everything changes when we talk about, non-human identities, right? And how they connect to the enterprise. Who owns them? That's very important. 50 years ago, 50, right? IBM had a famous quote. They said that software cannot be accountable, right? Like software cannot take management.
I've seen that one.
Like that. So the same thing here, right? Like, we cannot point at one of those agents and say, it's his fault, right? The agent cannot be accountable. It's not a legal entity, right? So we have to know how to manage them, right? Agents or non-human identities have to have ownership, right? They have to have lifecycle management. They have to have identity and access, right? Policies on top of that. And then when you look at, behavioral analysis and stuff like that, because it's very different in the world. Like non-human identity is not, it's not new in the concept, right? Like we had RPA, we have different software running for the enterprise and doing and automating a lot of the work, but it's practically a recipe that does what you expect it to do, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's repetitive, right? Unexpected. And when you have these new agents, which are again not the traditional robotic process automation, suddenly these agents, will perform the same task maybe in a different way because they learn, they improve, right? Just like us. And then the behavior analysis piece, and then specifically anomaly detection, becomes so much interesting, so much more complex, right? versus what we're used to in a kind of the traditional world of software.
It is fascinating. I think you're absolutely right around. There's so much we can learn from the sort of human world around governance, ownership, life cycle management, but the tooling just doesn't. It's not the same tooling, is it? It's the same concepts, and I absolutely agree around this ownership and accountability part. You really do need to sort of left shift the assurance aspect around whether it's AI or just standard APIs communicating with each other. You need to know why were they created, who created them, under what conditions. If I go off and develop something and I leave the organization, what does that relationship indicate? And the stuff I leave behind, it still needs to be managed and looked after and fed and watered and everything else. So I absolutely agree around ownership, having that linkage to a carbon life form, if you like, and having that governance aspect. And so that sort of ties into the third question really is to, how are you guys tackling this? What secret sauce does Astrix have? What are you doing which is going to solve some of these major problems?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is, as we said, we need to really rethink, right, the fundamentals of identity, right? So what we're building here is practically, the Active Directory for non-human identities, if you like, right? And you really have to kind of transform the whole identity governance, provisioning, right, lifecycle, security aspects of it. I think one of the biggest or maybe most interesting, aspects that we have is really the behavior analysis piece, right? So analyzing these identities and identifying identities based on behavior, right? Not necessarily based on something else. Again, humans, right? Passwords can be leaked or, stolen, right? Passports are kind of the way for humans to identify maybe biometrics, right? So what's the biometrics for an AI agent, right? Like, those are the things that we're tackling. Those are the things I think that are exciting, in what we do and where the world is going. So, organizations will have to merge, right, the different identities, and will have to be able to manage, right, in a kind of Active Directory fashion, the amount of artificial identities that will surpass, of course, right, the human identities in practically any organization that wants to survive.
I think it's an exciting thing, isn't it? It's an exciting opportunity, but as you say, we need to have those controls, the storage, the discovery, behavioural aspects to this as well. And I think if we get this right, I think it does then allow AI and other more autonomous systems to be developed faster, more securely, all of that privacy preservation aspect as well, if they're handling sort of sensitive data and such. So I think if you get it right, organizations can really reap the rewards, I think, from some of this stuff. So I think it's an exciting time. I think it's not a problem which is going to disappear. I think it seems to be a problem that's just getting bigger and bigger, which I think is both terrifying and quite exciting at the same time.
Cracking the surface of the challenges and where this is going, for sure.
Yeah.
By the way, in the enterprise and our personal life, we'll all have fleets of agents working for us, right, day by day.
This is it, and you need to embrace it, I think, and it's something where, maybe the next 12, 18 months, things like ethics and architectural patterns, everything's a little bit up in the air. Ultimately, it's definitely an area we've been looking at the SidePod, trying to sort of identify some architectural patterns. Things will change, and there may well be some sort of bumps in the road, but equally, it's no different really to maybe 10, 12 years ago when we started to look at things like microservices in the API economy and the data. Very different to how we sort of focused on the sort of LAMP stack of SQL and Python and PHP and stuff. So it is different. I think it's moving very fast, and I think it's great to hear the likes of yourselves tackling this problem with what sounds like a really broad sort of set of use cases, which is fabulous to hear. So thank you for taking a little bit of time out to understand a little bit more about Astrix. Totally appreciate that, and our audience will appreciate that as well. This has been another episode in the SidePod TV's vendor introduction series. Thank you for watching, and we will see you
Simon.
next time.